Hi, I'm Dr. Stephen Fenton. I'm a cardiologist. I'm a general cardiologist, but increasingly over the last 20 years or so, what's called a preventative cardiologist. In the 38 odd years that I've been in cardiology, there have been some absolutely amazing advances in various fields, and this includes things like imaging, where we look at the heart with ultrasound or CT X-ray or magnetic resonance imaging. We've had fantastic developments in therapeutics with drugs and procedures such as bypass surgery, and fantastic advances in valvular heart disease. Despite all of these amazing advances, heart disease remains the leading killer. It accounts for about 30% of mortality in Australia, around over 40% in Europe, and around the same in the United States. Heart attacks are very frequent and occur in Australia about every 8 minutes, and of these, 1 in 3 at the moment is fatal, which means there'll be a fatality every 26 minutes. Now, the sad part about what we have available today is if you get to a hospital, you've got about a 90% chance of surviving a heart attack, but half of folks, about 50%, don't make it to hospital. This means that it is vital for us to be right on our game in terms of preventive cardiology, and this is my interest, and this is why I have been involved in the development of Heart Initiative, which is a heart program, a heart wellness program, which is at its centre a motto of prevention by early detection. The disease which kills people from heart attacks is actually atherosclerosis, and the Heart Initiative's very strong on the concept of using the detection and quantification of atherosclerosis as the way for helping to prevent heart attacks by its early identification. And it is now increasingly widely recognised around the world is to determine who should have plaque testing or atherosclerosis testing, and the best test to do this is called a CT coronary calcium score. Now, a CT coronary calcium score is a very simple X-ray test which is very much like a mammogram of the heart. It involves a patient going to an X-ray service, taking a breath hold and having a quick picture. And it is quick, about 5 or 10 minutes, it is painless, it involves no dye and no injections, and it is minimal radiation. So the real message that the Heart Initiative wants to get out is that CT coronary calcium scoring is the best test to determine an individual's risk for the potential to have a potentially fatal heart attack. The Heart Initiative is a heart health and wellness program whose mission is prevention by early detection. What we're talking about here is heart attack prevention. Heart attacks are still the leading cause of death despite all the advances we have. When a heart attack occurs, it is because there has been a build-up of fatty rubbish in the coronary artery, which we call atheroma. The atheroma in a young person may be soft, but as we get older, it tends to harden and is called at that stage atherosclerosis. The atherosclerosis can be stable and not cause a problem, but it can be vulnerable and unstable and subject to bursting like a little pimple inside the artery. What is a bigger problem is, in response to that process, a dangerous heart rhythm can occur quite suddenly, and this is usually ventricular tachycardia, which can degenerate into another more sinister rhythm called ventricular fibrillation. And unless somebody is lucky enough to have somebody with a defibrillator standing by very soon, they are at potential risk of dying. And in fact, 50% of folks who have heart attacks don't make it to hospital. So that means prevention is very important, and the Heart Initiative's approach is to try to identify those people at risk by the early detection of atherosclerosis or plaque. The Heart Initiative recommends that if you might be at risk, that you undertake the Heart Initiative's risk profile calculator. This can be done by our online tool, and if you go ahead and do that, you will need to see your GP to get your blood pressure checked and to have your cholesterol measured. Both the HDL, the good, and the LDL, the bad cholesterol, would be very helpful. Very rarely your GP may, particularly if you have a strong family history, want to do other lipid or cholesterol numbers, and there's one called an LP(a), which we recommend. We're happy to have. It's not essential. But there are various other factors in the profile you'll then be able to do as part of a questionnaire. If you complete that and you send it in to the Heart Initiative, you'll get an email response which you can then discuss with your doctor, and that will determine whether you need to have plaque testing or specifically a test called a CT coronary calcium score. Now that calcium score might come back quite reassuring, and you've probably got at least a 50% chance or more that it will be normal, or 0 meaning no calcified plaque, which would be great. That means you have a warranty against a heart attack for 5 years, and your risk of heart attack for that period is practically 0.0. If, on the other hand, your result comes back unfavourable or concerning, which would mean a result perhaps of a few hundred or even over 100 can be a worry, certainly up to 1,000 is a significantly high number, then we would be more than happy to see you at our heart attack prevention program, which is part of the Heart Initiative service, and at that point you will see a preventative cardiologist, a specialist, and you will have a very comprehensive heart check. That heart check will include having a history taken by the cardiologist, which will detail all of your risk factors and other medical problems. You will be examined physically, and you will have a total checkup. You will have an echocardiogram most likely, which is an ultrasound test to look inside your heart to assess the muscle and the valves, and to measure your aorta, which is the main artery coming off the heart. And if your calcium score is high, you will also undergo an exercise test, which we call a stress echo, during which the doctor and the technician will be assessing your ECG or your electrocardiogram, your blood pressure, and we use the echo to see your left ventricle and see how it pumps before the test and after the test. The exercise test also allows us to assess your fitness to some degree and your heart rhythm functioning, and occasionally it might also determine whether you are likely to get symptoms even though you haven't had symptoms before. The heart attack prevention program will then conclude with the doctor making some personalised recommendations to you with a tailored plan, and a detailed report will be forwarded, of course, to your GP for further discussion. We are very strong in emphasising a holistic approach to prevention. This means a low saturated fat healthy diet. It means lowering blood pressure through natural methods. It means exercising, reducing stress, being happy in life, having good relationships, sleeping well, and in general having a balance in life. All of these things are very important in terms of reducing the risk of heart disease. The field has certainly grown in recent years, and some years ago there was really no preventative cardiology, but it is now a growing field, and I've been lucky enough to travel internationally and chair and moderate meetings in the United States, and I have spoken a few times now in Europe on the role of calcium scoring. I also am fortunate to have convened and regularly run an international meeting at Port Douglas in Australia on heart disease, and we always have very strong emphasis at that meeting on prevention, and are able to bring some leading world experts to that meeting to try to disseminate information and spread the word. Now, I'm often asked why I got into cardiology, and the practical answer is that I was fortunate enough to be allocated cardiology terms when I was an intern and resident in my early hospital work. But I think there may well be another factor behind that, and that goes back to my father having a heart attack way back in 1962 when I was age 10. Now bear in mind this was a long time ago, and it was several years even before coronary care units were developed, let alone any potential therapeutic measures like stents or clot dissolving treatment that came many years later. But also, always at the back of my mind was the question of what could have been done before the heart attack that occurred when my father was 45 to identify that he could be at risk. And the remarkable thing is, over 60 years since then, we still don't have a good answer to that question, which is widely accepted by the medical community or the community in general. But I have discovered in recent years that the answer to that test is the test of a CT coronary calcium score. That is the answer to the question of how somebody at the age of 45 could have had a heart attack prevented if they were unlucky enough to have one. And that is because the calcium score will allow early detection of the plaque, and that has taught me the mission of the Heart Initiative, which is prevention by early detection.